Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler. That is Christopher Hall, and West Virginia, 28-16, they fall in the coal rush to Iowa State, and somehow, 48 hours later, that's really not the conversation out there amongst the fan base and in the media. As you've probably heard or seen by now, Neal Brown's comments his message, if you will, to the fans for this week's game against Kansas State was basically asked about what his message would be to get them to come back and have a good day to support the Mountaineers. So, without me doing any more disservice to this, let's just take a listen here for just a second and see what he had to say.
I get that they want to win, but what I would say is, did they have a good time? You know what I mean? Did they enjoy it? It was pretty good atmosphere. I'm assuming they had probably had a pretty good time tailgating. So if they're in the deal for enjoyment, then I would come back because I looked at the weather. It's going to be nice again. It's a night game, and we need them to provide a home field advantage. We need them. I get they're frustrated that we didn't win. We've played a tough schedule. Everybody that's beat us hasn't lost. All right, but that's no excuse. That's just the truth. And the games in our league are going to come down to the fourth quarter, and I don't think this one on Saturday is going to be any different. So we need them to help us. I do get their frustration, but I don't think it's when you watch our product. I don't think the product is something that they should be other than the outcome. Like our kids play hard. That was a really physical football game on Saturday. There's a lot of West Virginia kids out there spilling it out. And so there was clear strain, clear physicality. It was an entertaining football game. If you're a football fan, you're just watching that. It's pretty entertaining. We just didn't play well enough to win. And so I hope with that in mind, they would come back for another entertaining game that hopefully we can play better at the end and win.
All right, Chris. So, interesting thoughts there from Neil. I don't know that he worded it really the right way. And my initial thought was, wow, like you really just said this during a live press conference. I was shocked by what he said there at the beginning. I get that it can be twisted and it could be forgot that he did say, like, yes, we want the fans to be there for the support, and he gets that they're frustrated. I get that. Like, yes, he did say that, but to me, that's not what I pull out of that. And I don't think anybody with their own right mind really pulled out of that press conference. It's the way that he said that with did they enjoy it? Did they have a good time? They have a good time at the tailgates. No, no one cares. No one cares what happens in the tailgate. No one happens if they had a good time or enjoyed the drone show or the coal rush. No one cares if you lose with a loss. I highly doubt there was a single Mountaineer fan that left Mountaineer Field last Saturday saying, you know what, that tailgating was really fun. The coal rush was fun. The drone show was fun. But who cares about the score? That's not it at all. It all comes down to wins and losses, and he failed to read the room. I don't care if his message was about the fans' frustration or not. You have to word that much better. You have to angle that much better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was exa did not convey the message well at all. And he was obviously still frustrated from the loss. And it doesn't matter. It's just part of your job. And when you make a slip or anything, it is definitely going to be highlighted when
Yep.
you're not winning. So, yeah, I obviously understand frustration part of it. Growing up in Morgantown, going to all these games in the 90s and early 2000s, we kind of took that motto that it was win or lose, we booze because they weren't winning. That was just kind of, you just kind of dealt with it and you just went and had a good time. So maybe that was just kind of how he just felt about it in the moment because he is obviously frustrated with how the season has went so far. If you go back and maybe get the Pitt win, this isn't maybe as bad as it is right now. But yeah, it's frustrating because fans haven't seen a win at night in Morgantown against a ranked opponent since Coach Stewart was in town. So I don't know really what direction this program's really heading right now. We've talked about how this team's young and yada yada yada, but at the same time, when you're not winning, no message that even if he says it correctly, isn't going to make the fans any happier. Just
No.
maybe less disgruntled at this point. So yeah, I think, and really the probably the biggest problem with it is if these tickets were $20 and you
Exactly.
didn't have to pay $50 for parking, take all the price into consideration here. It's one of the most expensive game days to go to, and when you're 500, yeah, people are going to get frustrated because I mean he's even mentioned how fans have to come in and travel and how he appreciates it and understands that. Um, and fans are coming in and have to spend the night on a Saturday night and have to spend that hotel money. Yeah, it's not the message you want to send out there. So, absolutely, it's not what he meant, but that you can't send that kind of message when you guys are struggling the way they are. All the hype that was coming into the season. Talking about Garrett as a top 100 player, he has not looked like a top 100 player at
No.
all. Um, and it gets frustrating because he was kind of part of that. He was part of that hype train. He was the one that said that Garrett was a top 100 player. So, yeah, it is definitely frustrating, and understand his frustration. But at the same time, when you're the head ball coach, you get paid the salary you do. You have to be able to take that, no matter how many times that question has been asked to him the last couple of years. That literally that same question, um, you got to be able to handle it better when, no matter how frustrated you are.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it wasn't like he fell into a trap. Like it's the
Wow.
most basic question that a coach gets asked every single week after a loss, and especially at the collegiate level when you may be struggling and you want the fan support. It was the most basic thing that he could have been asked, and it's not like he was tricked into it. And for him to take that angle was really interesting because, like you said, the game day experience is one of the most expensive in all of college football. We all know West Virginia is not a state that is just rolling in dollars, right? This is a state that a lot of families live paycheck to paycheck, and they spend a good portion of their money on going to West Virginia games, spending it on stuff to go to WVU for different events. And I think that was just a I don't know if it was overlooked or if he just wasn't thinking in the time, but people are not showing up to Morgantown on a Saturday night to go tailgating. That's not
Not
what
at this
they're there for.
point. not
No,
not 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 at the rate that these tickets are. They're definitely coming to see a win, and they've changed a lot of things in the last 20 years on how you're allowed to tailgate and where you're allowed to tailgate, all that stuff. So yeah, it is not cheap, and when you put that kind of message out there, yeah, it didn't land. It wasn't going to land. So I don't know. Like he could have said it perfectly, and people still were going to be mad because at the end of the day, they're still losing. So there
exactly.
was nothing that really he could say I think in the moment that was going to make anybody happier after that loss. And really, the cure all now is just to win. Because, like, again, there's no message at this point that's going to fix the message that you didn't convey, and nothing
Exactly.
moving forward is going to do you any better than just winning. So, yeah, they've got, and I know we can go in a lot of directions, and this is just about the message, but you just got to win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, like you said, what is he going to say that's really going to rally the troops and get everyone's optimistic about this week? Because I mean, the facts are what they are. Like he's 3-16 against top 25 teams since he's been at West Virginia. You got another one coming here this Saturday with Kansas State. If history proves to be true, well, you're probably going to be 3-17 under him. You're going to be 3-4 in the season, and all of a sudden there's no excitement around this program whatsoever in year six. And I think that's the most disappointing thing about all of this. Had this misconstrued or misdelivered message, however you want to word it, came after, say, the Pitt game, right? It would still irk people the wrong way, 1000%, especially
After
maybe
the
even
pick
more
game, it may
so.
have been worse.
Yeah, maybe even more so. But the timing of it is where I'm going with here. You were 1-2 at the time, and you hadn't even begun conference play yet. So you could have said that and probably gotten still some fans to be optimistic about the season because you hadn't had a league game yet. Now that you have this, now you're 3 games into league play, and you're about to go into a fourth, which is a team that you're going to be a dog against. It's not good timing. So, and I don't know that there really is good timing, but it's tough. Year six, this is a team that should be competitive, should be playing in the mix for the Big 12 title. Yeah, here we are, Chris, 6 games in. their three wins are against three teams that they should have beat, and the three losses are against three teams they should have lost to. So we're halfway through it. I don't know what is going to be the so-called, the line for where it would be for Ren to make a change, but just your quick thoughts on kind of the whole situation with Neal and what needs to happen down the stretch for him to return in 2025.
I think he's going to have to stay within the Big 12 title appearance conversation into November. So they're going to have to rack up a bunch of wins, really, probably all the way through. You're going to have to beat Kansas State. You had to go 500. You have to go 500 in this two-game homestand because these are the two teams that you're probably going to be in a tiebreaker with. I And I think a lot of that too was going. They were competitive against Iowa State, but it was up until the second half. Right,
Yeah,
they didn't score. So it's at this point, it's not even being competitive in these games. You're going to have to win because yes, they hit the reset. Yes, Ren Baker understands the reset because of NIL. We've talked about it like Traylon Ray, Hudson Clement. They're your two best receivers. This is only their second year. Jaheim White's only his second year. Garrett Green was kind of fast tracked as a quarterback. He has not looked well. So your star players haven't been stars. Like, yes, Jaheim White ran for 150 yards against Oklahoma State. Something's got to give there. Like that was one game, and this was another player that they touted that he was going to have he's a special player. They haven't looked special. So again, there was a lot of hype around this team. They have to win. Winning is obviously the cure all, but I don't know. Does Ren take it all into consideration? Okay, Nico's in the fold. Like, how many losses is enough? Is bowl eligible enough
I don't
at
think
this
so.
point? So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to how Ren views the whole picture and how he sees this program moving forward from where they're at. And if they're not beating Kansas State and they go out to Arizona and lose, they're essentially done. Like your destiny throughout the rest of the season is not in your hands.
Yeah,
So how's that look? Because he let them finish out the season. What if they went out the rest of the season? Is any of them going to be against ranked opponents at that point? Are they going to pick up a ranked opponent win? Is it at Texas Tech? Does Texas Tech win enough to get in the top 25 to get it? Like your opportunities are a miss, and I think the really to me, out of all of that yesterday, that message just didn't land with me. Like I just didn't phase me. Just did not care about that at all. What really stuck out to me was everybody saying that they weren't doing the little things to win the game, from the players, the assistants, everybody in there, and that is the most disappointing part because it goes back to last season when they got on a little winning streak and they didn't handle success well, and that was mentioned. So they won two games and they didn't handle success well when a team came in. You're not doing the little things. I think that right there is the biggest issue because it's not just one quote, it was multiple quotes when you're at the halfway point and guys that you're relying on aren't doing the little things to win. So I think that really is kind of telling of everybody. They haven't fixed that problem. And it's not just a football program problem. We've had this discussion multiple times that anytime any team gets a little bit of success here, they can't handle it and they always go lay an egg. So maybe it's that wake up call that we've talked about multiple times throughout this season that this is what they needed to kind of turn the page. But obviously, it was not what they needed prior because when you win two games, you're not doing the little things. That's a huge, huge issue.
yeah. I mean, it's year six, and I feel like I've said this almost every year. It's year four, still waiting on the results. Year five, still waiting on the results. And you go back to, I would say last season, right? The 9-win year. I think the more we get deeper into this season, we're going to really see if last season was an anomaly. And if it was, Neal couldn't and shouldn't get a pass for that because he didn't have success before that. He had three of his first four seasons at WVU were losing seasons. Last year, he had the 9-win year and what was everyone views as a very light schedule. I know going into the year it was a different narrative, but it ended up being a very light year. And if you don't build on that, or at least come in the same ballpark of that, and you go back to what you were beforehand and you say go 6-6, I don't understand how you can justify keeping him going into 2025, buyout or not. He's not winning enough. And that's the problem. So I don't know what that line is again for Ren Baker, for Gordon Gee, for the administration. I don't know. But they seem to want to give him a really long leash. I understand some of the reasons behind that, but at some point, you have to be serious about being serious. And most places around college football, they're not going to put up with mediocrity for this long in terms of the end results. Neal's a great guy. We've all said that many times before. Easy guy to root for. But if you don't win games, you're not going to be able to keep your job at most places. And I'm sure you've seen this, Chris, but there's only 4 teams in Power Four football that have not been ranked a single week in the last 4 years. Rutgers, Vanderbilt, West Virginia, and I can't even remember the other one off the top of my head. Texas Tech. Texas Tech. And you can make an argument that the other three at some point in the near future could be ranked. Leaving West Virginia is the only Power Four team not to be ranked in the last 4 years. What does that say about where you are as a program?
Absolutely. And there's not much that you can't really defend the undefendable at this point. So, yeah, they're still young, and that's what you're kind of relying on. But at the same time, um, there's been young teams that win at home against ranked opponents. And it is kind of crazy when you look at who they've lost to. None of them have lost the
Yeah.
game. And the two Power Four teams that they beat haven't won a conference game. So it's just crazy how big of a gap that is right now with the teams they've played. So yeah, winning's a cure all, and they're going to have to start winning. They cannot win a couple games and lose again if you want to keep their job, because it's the same thing. Again, it's you win 2 games and these players walk around like they don't have to show up against an Iowa State team.
Yeah.
We've talked. People have talked about, don't worry about the name on their chest in regards. Um, you know, Remember back in the day, the big bad Miami, right? Intimidated by the U. And you still see it today with, in upsets, right? You can say that with Alabama a couple weeks ago, not taking Vandy seriously. Well, Iowa State's not a known program, but that number at the beginning of their name should have told you a lot. Whether they didn't beat teams, they didn't have that daunting schedule that we talked about last week, that they really hadn't beaten anybody. Well, they went out in Morgantown and showed everybody in Morgantown that that's a
They're
good team.
legit.
That's a good team. It's not going to take the sting away from Mountaineer fans when you think that you have a good team as well, but they didn't show it. So I think that really right now, with the message, kind of shows you with the team. It is not translated. It is not translating well, and you have got to rack up wins. You have got to find a way. If it is just kids missing their assignments, you have got to find a way to deliver a message to them that this is week in, week out. You just had the mantra 1-0, and they were all saying the right things heading into it, but they didn't show it on the field. So they have to show something on the field, and it's not just being competitive. Right now, it's about winning. Because again, if you hold on to that pit game, things might not be so bad in Morgantown right now.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
that pit loss was really ugly. And
And I think
when you have an
that's
opportunity to turn it around at home again, like everyone got excited about Penn State, and you can kind of go, well, even though there was a lot of people that were upset, you kind of go, well, it's Penn State, like that's a program that's been good for decades. And you can go, okay, well, Pitt, like, okay, well, there's the defense. It wasn't, we saw what happened with the defense. Well, now they're fixed, and now the offense is still struggling, and that was supposed to be your strength this year. So I think, and guess who's in charge of calling the plays? That's Neal Brown. So everything's kind of laying on his feet right now, and it's not going to get easier for him. It ain't going to matter what he says after the game or next Monday at the next press conference if he does not win, because people are already have been jumping off this ship, and after that, I don't think they really needed that message at this point. I think that was just more
yeah.
frustration of fans. I don't think more people jumped off the ship on Monday. I think they were already well past that ship kept
They're
on
just starting to
rolling.
swim further away. That's all.
pretty much. So, yeah, there's nothing that he can do or say at this point other than just win.
I think
because it doesn't matter anything else.
the biggest issue I think Mountaineer fans have outside of just not winning enough games is the way that they lose some of these games. I mean, the amount of high snaps, they could have fixed that. Like, I understand you don't want to bring in a redshirt freshman for a 6 year senior, but at some point, it became really costly for them. It messed them up, it got them out of rhythm offensively. They could have switched that. They could have retaped their hand. They could have or retaped Yates's hand. They could have brought in Livingston. I'm telling you right now, that would be the whole talking point from this game if it was in the NFL from the fan base because it was all about that and how they didn't get it fixed. Why was that not fixed? Not about what the coach said and his message. But that was an issue. There was other issues in terms of Garrett Green and forcing some balls, not getting any offensive rhythm in the second half. You go and look at the first half where you missed the first down catch from Gallagher. You missed the field goal 3 plays later, miscommunication, touchdown. How does half the defense get one call and the other half get the other half, another call? How does that happen in these types of games? It can't happen in these types of games. You go to the Pitt game, you're up by 10 with 3 minutes and some change to go. How do you find a way to lose that game? You go to the first backyard brawl. How do you find a way to lose that game? You go to the Oklahoma game a few years back with Jarrett Doege and company, Zach Frazier. They had a couple of bad snaps. They were on the verge of beating Oklahoma on the road, and they found a way to lose. It's always West Virginia finding a way to lose and beat themselves in these games. And I think that's the most frustrating part at least from the fans' perspective over these last 6 years. The crazy thing, Chris, they're still in this Big 12 race as of right now. I know no one wants to think that way or talk about it because rightfully so, that they're not really deserving of being in that conversation right now. But mathematically, they're 2-1. And if you win this weekend, you're 3-1. You've got like you said, a head-to-head win over Kansas State. You're in okay shape.
Yeah, you went out, you're going to the Big 12 championship, without a doubt. So, yeah, it is the frustrating that West Virginia continues to beat themselves. And, I don't understand why not give Nico a chance
Yes,
because
that's the thing
the
at the
thing,
end of the press conference. What's with the snippy response?
the,
Like
the,
you're
the, the,
down
thing,
three
the
scores.
deal is they were putting Nico in the week before randomly. So why not do it this week when your quarterback's struggling? So
And you're
yeah,
down
there's a lot
18.
of different questions. Like again, that's why the message didn't land with me. Like, who cares? Like, you want a sales pitch right now when they're 3-3? Um, Here, go have fun at the tailgate. I hope we win. We need you. Like, that's pretty much where I was at because I wasn't trying to dissect his answer at that in that moment in time. So there's a lot of other just everything that you point out. Like, why do they keep laying an egg? Garrett has really shrunk in the big moments at this season, and I think those are the more concerning things rather than the message, because a lot of these are just they've talked about self infliction, and that's really the issue. Well, why do you keep having these you know, everything that you do, you're saying that West Virginia beats themselves. Well, why? Why does this keep happening? And we can go to they're still young with their star players, and maybe they're just not as across the board not as talented as the rest of the league. And it continues to show week in week out when you see Garrett's decision making. He could have ran for a first down, tries to squeeze one in the trailing Ray over the middle, and he could have had a 15-yard gain and a first down. The drive keeps going. So
Yep.
why did he throw that last interception? Why? Why did you throw that ball? What could you have possibly seen in that moment that you're just going to toss it up in a sea of Iowa State defenders? So, yeah, why does he keep doing that? Has he not learned? Why is he struggling in big games? Is it just because the team's that much more talented? You is that how your players feel? So there's just a lot more to dissect than that message, even though yes, that's what fans heard, and yes, that's the biggest issue apparently right now.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I don't understand when you're down 28-10 in that game. Like the question was very like okay for I thought it was reasonable to ask that. You're down 18, the game's pretty much well in hand. Most coaches would probably throw their backup quarterback in just to see them go and try and do something. I mean, I don't understand why he had to have the response that he had. And it was like, why do you think we needed a spark? Like, Yeah, dude, you're down 18. There's like not
You
much time
start
left in the game.
after the third drive of the game, and your quarterback was not playing well. He's
Yeah.
missing wide open guys. He continues to miss open guys. So
And no one was saying
um,
that they should have made
benched
the
him.
switch full
Right.
time. It was just for
I mean,
the rest of the
Gundy's
game.
taken out Bowman twice this year because of his poor play,
Yeah.
trying to find answers. So when your quarterback, and you can go look at the numbers, his numbers are not good, especially against Power 14. Like he's not putting up great numbers whatsoever.
Three
So yeah,
point three
they
point
need.
two percent higher completion percentage, I believe, since last year. And that's the
He
whole
has
thing that
not
everyone
made
talked about.
some. He has not made great plays. Like you can go back, yeah, he made some runs against Oklahoma State. He's had some throws, but this is why they're losing. Their quarterback's not making winning plays. And it's just the decision making. Really, his decision making is why they're not been explosive plays
Yeah,
from him. From him. So they have a lot to figure out. And if they're
sure do.
up front missing basic missing basic assignments up front, and that was one of the issues. Apparently, that was one of the big things that came out yesterday as well. Iowa State didn't do anything great. They made some adjustments and we couldn't handle it. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, why are these things coming up in the middle of the season? Like, this is insane that you're not getting your best foot forward out of these guys when everything's in front of you. That thought they could just walk out there and beat the number 11 team in the country. It's wild. That to me is the wild thing. That's
It
just
is.
wild to me.
Well, usually every week on Wednesday we do how West Virginia beats that opponent. Maybe we'll have to switch the title around to how West Virginia beats itself for this week because that's become the theme.
Probably the same thing. Bad
Yep.
decision making from your quarterback, and we can pick on the defense. There was really only a few plays that, unfortunately, they were very costly. But when you can hide those when your offense is playing well. But when your offense is just as poor as this one's been, you can really only hang your hat on against Oklahoma State team. It's bad.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, we will actually not dissect how West Virginia will beat itself. We will give you the keys to the game and how they can beat the Wildcats in a very much needed win for West Virginia this week. 3-3. Don't want to fall behind in the Big 12 race any further. You don't want to go sub 500. So we'll dive into that tomorrow. And on excuse me, on Thursday we'll have Eugene in here for the Walkthrough Game Day show, breaking down the game in greater detail, giving our picks and much more. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Between the Ears. Hit that YouTube subscribe button on our YouTube page here at West Virginia on SI and give us a follow on X at SI_WVU.